Okay, thank you, Don.
Okay, I would like to call Shore Human Relations Commission meeting to order. And Mrs. Brown, if you will, roll call, please.
Roll call, Mr. Major,
Here.
Mr. Baum,
Here.
Mr. Beltner,
Here.
Ms. Holycroft. Here. Mr. Keller,
Here.
Mr. Phillips. Here. Mr. Seaver, absent. And Ms. Villanova.
Ruby Bill Bullock.
No, Viola.
Villalobos.
I always said Villalobos.
Villalobos.
Yeah, Villalobos.
Villalobos.
She's absent.
Is she?
Yes. She's absent.
Thank you. I'm sorry, Ruby, we will get your name pronounced correctly.
Okay, I'd like to move to approve the minutes from March 18th.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? None? Okay. So, I guess we are into Mr. McKinney. It is you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening again.
Again, for some of you. Salome, did you need me to move this mic over here?
Can you do a mic check?
Mic check 1, 2,
Sean, if you'd like to
Hey.
sit, you can sit. I mean, would that be easier instead of standing? Okay.
So Dave, can you hear us?
Can you hear me, Dave?
Yep.
So I was going to focus today more on what we've done in the last quarter, the first quarter of 2021, some of our numbers, and then some of the things we've done as far as training and administrative things. In the first quarter of 2021, we took 6,000, we generated 6,028 calls. Some of the statistics include 126 crashes. 7 of those were alcohol and drug related. 23 were injury crashes. We made 449 misdemeanor arrests. That doesn't mean physical arrest. That means charges. So a lot of those misdemeanors are just summonses or charges being filed after the person is released by the officer. And we did 86 felony arrests. And again, that all those are not actual physical arrests. Those are sometimes charges being filed if somebody had left the scene before the officer got there, if through investigation we figured out who that was, or if the grand jury indicted somebody.
I'm sorry, you said 86
felony arrests.
and
Or actually, I guess I could change that. 86 felony charges filed.
of charges filed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Over the
And
course
that's
of
over
3
the
months.
last 3 months. Okay. So was that high or?
I haven't really compared that. Gotcha. I would say no. I'd say it's probably pretty average.
Okay.
And some of these we're counting actual charges. So if somebody has, multiple types of drugs, say they get charged with a felony possession of heroin and a felony possession of cocaine. That would be 2 charges.
Okay.
We've had 2 formal complaints over the first quarter. Not familiar with the one. I think it was handled at a level lower than mine. But the first one had to do with the handcuffing of an older patient. And I say patient because they were in a facility. They punched the firefighter, or no, they didn't punch the firefighter. They grabbed the firefighter by the throat. Our officers restrained him, put him on the cot. He was transported to the hospital, and he was handcuffed. Unfortunately, he suffered some bruising from the handcuffs because we don't carry soft restraints on our belts, and that's kind of what generated the complaint. But I found that was within policy.
And that's from someone that was in the hospital here.
They were in a assisted living facility. And they had called because they wanted him transported to the hospital. Gotcha. And I know that was one of the formal complaints. I didn't have a chance to review it, but I'm not really sure what the other formal complaint was. We made 1,459 traffic stops. Of those 1,459 traffic stops, 1,142 of them, the person received a warning. We issued 446 tickets. Now, this ticket number includes traffic crashes. Our policy is to, if we can determine fault in the traffic crash, we issue the appropriate person a ticket. So, if the HRC is getting the regular updates from the city council packets, are those not coming in those?
Yeah, they're posted.
Yeah, they're-
We just
they're
have
there.
to get them.
I think, yeah, we should definitely do that.
So I have the numbers added up for the entire quarter in the breakdown of race for warning citations and the percentage of work warnings, but unfortunately I don't have that with me. Oh, okay, here it is. Okay. I had one of the clerks type it up. Traffic citations, black male, 47 citations, 82 warnings. Hispanic male, 6 citations, 4 warnings. White males, 225 citations, 546 warnings. Black female, 8 citations, 26 warnings. Hispanic, 2 citations, 2 warnings. Hispanic female, sorry. White female, 158 citations, 482 warnings. And again, that includes traffic crashes.
482,
482 warnings.
and that's over the last quarter, right?
Last quarter. The percentage of warnings for black male, it's 63.57%. Hispanic male, 40% got warnings. White male, 70% got warnings. Black female, 76% got warnings. Hispanic female, 50% got warnings. White female, 75% got warnings. Over the course of the first quarter, we had 4 pursuits. One was terminated without an arrest. The person, that one we believe it was a stolen vehicle. Several jurisdictions pursued them. It's the same night that there was a car stolen from Irwin's Chrysler. And we believe it is a group out of Columbus, Ohio that is traveling and stealing cars from dealerships. But it was almost like that was a distraction while they stole the car from Irwin's.
Wow.
So, but they got away. In the 2 pursuits, we arrested the people involved, and in 1 pursuit ended in the double fatality.
Is the baby okay? The 2-year-old?
Can
Yeah.
I
That's
ask
good.
something? What is the protocol in a pursuit? When do you stop pursuing? I mean, when do you stop? I mean, is there a point where you say, okay, it's kind of out of our county, let us hold back? It's a traffic area.
Our policy explains that it's based upon the seriousness of the offense committed and the traffic conditions. They're constantly being evaluated. All of our officers and all of our supervisors involved in that are authorized to terminate that pursuit when they feel that the known offenses that have occurred outweigh the risk.
I didn't know if you had a certain area that you let someone else take over or. how that
Generally, if somebody else is able to be in control of the pursuit, we will maybe not hand that off to them, but if we're not familiar with that area, the initiating officer would back off and let people that are familiar with that area be the lead.
Can I ask, how do I ask this? I'm struggling for words, so excuse me if I don't say it correctly. What is the mental state currently of the officer that was involved or officers that were involved?
So any critical incident, I'm going to speak in generalities here because
Okay.
I don't want to disclose anything. We have different things in place. We have through our insurance, EAP, the Employee Assistant Program, through the Miami County, Tri-County Board of Mental Health, they offered a critical incident debriefing. That is considered, I mean, I attended that, I'll tell you that much, and that is considered kind of a confidential, protected counseling type of thing.
Okay.
So that is offered to anybody that's involved with that. There are other agencies that have reached out to me from the State Patrol, to some other local agencies that have other resources for debriefings, critical stress debriefings.
Nice.
So I think we're okay. I
Okay.
mean,
That's really what I guess I was trying to say.
Yeah.
Like,
it's difficult though. I'll tell
yeah,
you that much.
for sure. I guess just a side note, if there's anything that we could do to support that 2-year-old, let us know from Partners in Hope and from just me as a person. Is that really? I've been doing a lot of praying for that little person. That's tough.
We had 21 uses of force, 21 incidents of uses of force during that quarter. And they involved 22 people. I broke down the race. 17 were white, 5 were black. It involved 21 males and 1 female. The 1 female, which was in early March, was the female involved in the pursuit. That was a felony stop. So when we stopped them for Piqua after the shooting in Piqua, it's standard procedure. If you think that somebody's got a gun in the car, we're going to do what's called a felony stop. So we're not going to approach the car. We're not going to run up on the car. We're going to stop the car. Officers are going to draw their weapons. They're going to point it at the car, and they're going to order people out and have them walk back to us. And that's what happened, and we count that as a use of force, even though neither of them were hurt at that point, either the driver or the either the male or the female, but it was the same male and the female that was in the car during the pursuit. So that was a felony stop, and that counts as one of the uses of force. And that's the black female that's included in this.
So the first stop, the child wasn't in the car.
No, she was in the other car.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not 100% familiar with Piqua's case.
Okay. Got you.
We had an 8-hour training day over the course of this quarter. Was it in
March.
March?
Yep.
You were there. During that, we did a legal update, which is a required annual legal update. We did service dog training. We had an update on title and licensing laws, and Sonia and one of our officers and a sheriff's deputy presented tactical communications in a 2-hour segment.
Yep.
And it went really well.
I
And
think it
I'd
went
like to
very
thank
well,
Sonia
too.
for assisting us and Partners in Hope for assisting us in providing that training.
Thank you. I was very impressed with the interaction, the communication, and what I feel was the humbleness and honesty of the officers during the training. We talked about some pretty complicated stuff, and they were very vulnerable, and so I appreciate that as well.
Been working with City Hall on a couple of different topics. I think I may have mentioned this, and I'm going to re-mention it, that we have signed through the state contract the ability to purchase, or the estimate for our body cameras and our new in-car cameras. So now we're on the waiting list for WatchGuard to provide those to us. Unfortunately, a lot of big customers are also signing those now. We have purchased 12 new in-car cameras, and we will have a total of 30 body cameras. Now we have 43 officers, so we're going to have to swap those out. Obviously, it's very rare for more than a dozen officers to be working at the same time. So we think we'll be able to get by, but there is a chance maybe to purchase more with the state grants that might be coming available this summer. It's in the state budget. I was in contact with the Ohio Association of Chiefs of Police asking about the timeline for the state grant for those. They believe it'll be passed in June, And then obviously the Attorney General's office will need some time to get that program in place. And in conversations I had with Patrick, he did not want to wait that long. I didn't want to wait that long to get these body cameras ordered. Especially, you know, we're hearing that the bigger cities, the Columbuses, the Cincinnatis, since they're giving more money, and this is a division of Motorola, WatchGuard is a division of Motorola, they seem to be getting priorities over the smaller cities. It's probably just a monetary decision.
Will SROs wear those body cams?
That's our plan. We want all 3 SROs to have the body cams all the time. Anybody that's on patrol will be required to wear a body camera. And then if a detective goes out on a call or goes out to interview somebody, we're going to have them wearing them. Hopefully it doesn't overwhelm the numbers, but then we will look at those again if we're coming across situations where, you know, we're running short of body cams. Part of the issue is you got to take into account recharge time. You know, the batteries need to recharge. You need to put them in the charger for a certain amount of time before you can use them again. I'd like to thank the HRC and Mayor Oda, part of this, and the Troy Foundation for helping fund some of this. The letter signed by the HRC by Mr. Major helped us get that grant from the Troy Foundation, and that helped us make this purchase.
Awesome.
You're welcome.
Like she did it all by herself.
On behalf of the agent.
You're very welcome.
We've been working with City Hall to try to change some of our hiring guidelines. Currently, you have to be an OPATA certified officer to apply for us. We're working on trying to do that. Part of the issue is we just don't have a lot of applications right now. So I've been working with Tom Funderburg, our HR director, who also through our Civil Service Commission rules will need to be changed. We may even have to go to City Council to maybe have a police recruit or a police cadet program where we might be able to hire officers that aren't certified. So if I find a candidate that I think would make a good police officer, I can send them to a police academy as a recruiter cadet. And I think that will help our ability to hire. I have one officer retiring. Right now we're fully staffed. I have one officer retiring tomorrow. Congratulations to Officer Collette on his retirement. And then I have 2 officers retired in September that I know of. And then I have a sergeant that is right now probably going to have to go out on a disability, unfortunately. And he's on leave right now, so he's probably not going to return. So I'll have 4 openings this year that I'll need to fill.
Oh, wow.
So, and we really, our application list right now is pretty thin. Our applications are open under the old system where you still have to be a certified officer, but we're trying to get that changed so I can send somebody to the police academy.
What's the time frame to get somebody fully trained if you send them to the?
I'm gonna 22 weeks.
About 4 months.
Yeah, the police academy is 22 weeks. You have to be, you know, for the city of Troy, you have to be between the ages of 21 and 35 for your first appointment, and that is Ohio Revised Code. I'd like to see that age limit go up a little bit further, maybe. We've been in a position where we've been attracting a lot of officers from other jurisdictions to Troy to come to Troy because of our community is fairly nice and people want to work here.
Yeah.
Our pay is, I'd say, probably average for the area for the size city we are, and there's some decent benefits. So we definitely attract some people from cities that are maybe a little more active, and they kind of want to get away from that activity, especially older officers. So,
Right.
and then you know, we have a lot of officers. Well, not a lot, but we've had some officers that 10 years ago, when it was harder to find a police job because of more people wanted to be police officers, went to different jurisdictions, but they were from Troy and they wanted to work for Troy and they grew up in Troy and they might even still live in Troy and they wanted to get back to their hometown. So that is something that works in our favor is the community pride of the city of Troy and people wanting to get back here to their hometown. that is about it that I've got for tonight. Does anybody have any questions?
I do have a couple. So, so when we get, a notice from a civilian about an incident, so there was one incident that we received an email about, without rehashing the entire story.
I think I'm familiar with it.
Yes.
An Asian
Yep.
incident. Hey,
So we're going to form a letter so that we can send it out to people. But what I was wanting to know, the expectation of the police officers should be that they're going out to ask questions and things of that nature. But if there are charges to be filed, what should we be, engaging and advising that?
so specific to kind of that incident,
Yeah.
the charges that an officer is going to think about first is menacing,
Yep.
causing a threat of harm to a person. It's got to be a pretty direct threat.
Right.
It's got to be something like, I am going to hurt you now. And that person's got to believe it.
Gotcha.
And believe that, I am at least concerned that this is a legitimate threat. If it's something on the internet and it's like, I am going to, love the day that Chief McKinney gets his butt kicked down Main Street. That's not a threat to me. I'm loving the day that this happens. I'm not going to do it. That person's not saying they're going to do it. It was kind of an example used today in some training I went to. Not me specifically, not me specifically, but it was a class about First Amendment rights that I actually attended today.
Yeah, that's
And
interesting.
so it's kind of appropriate that we're talking about this, given that I just went to this class, is that, a veiled threat, is really not a threat when it comes to menacing. I've encountered a lot of times where people will feel threatened because of somebody said, you're going to pay. And, the smart person that says that, maybe they meant that I'm going to kick that person's butt. But when we come and investigate, well, I was going to sue him. If he didn't, take care of what I'm upset about, I was going to sue him. So it becomes very difficult to prove a menacing unless it's a very direct threat.
What if I'm sorry, but what if they have a background? Does that then change it? So if I have a history of a disorderly or assault and then I say that same sentence, is that different?
Well, it really comes down to the prosecutor. And we go out and investigate it. We get the statement from any witnesses, the people involved, anybody that's willing to give us a statement, basically.
Okay.
We present the case to the prosecutor. And unless it's recorded, our statements, our reports are going to be, I interviewed witness A, and they said this. I interviewed the victim, and they said this. I interviewed the suspect, and they said this. So we present that all to the prosecutor, and if they don't see that they can prove the case, they don't accept charges. Kind of the step down from menacing is disorderly conduct. Disorderly conduct, in some situations can really kind of tread on your First Amendment rights. So, some hate speech might be able to fall into disorderly conduct, especially when you look at the entire context. But for the most part, disorderly conduct is a minor misdemeanor, and it's a citation I'm going to give somebody. If it rises in the situation that came to our attention, if the person is just unhinged and causing a disturbance in that dentist office, and it is, there's multiple witnesses and they're all offended, and it's just, maybe we got a case for disorderly conduct. If it's done very quietly, it might fall under freedom of speech.
Could that protect future MLK walks from anti or racist groups from threatening and screaming and walking next to us? If it presents, I mean, it's been a while and it's never been under your watch, but for the future,
Well, I remember when those happened, and like
that
you said,
scared, I'll be
they-
honest, it scared me.
Yeah.
I didn't really know how to process
Yeah,
that.
I remember those happening, and it's a matter of, do they? I mean, it's a very fuzzy line of where disorderly conduct is and where it isn't, and where free speech is and it isn't.
So since they've already made a presence, and I mean, I think you can gauge that our community is fearful. Could that set a precedent for next? I just think that they
Yeah.
should, you know what I mean?
I'm not sure if how much, and a lawyer or prosecutor could probably say how much past history of something could be taken into account, but I don't think it's much based on my experience. Unfortunately, I think it's very little,
Very little, meaning their presence, or
No, it's very little as far as, if this group maybe showed up at the Martin Luther King March last year and now they're here this year and they do the exact same thing. I don't think that if what we considered was legal last year, just because they did it 2 years in a row, it would now be illegal.
right?
So, and so their past history, or maybe it's the group that,
Should
I
we?
remember years ago, there was a group that showed up at the library and gave
Yeah.
a speech. And,
Man.
yeah.
Or what about like, there's a couple people that have, and it's okay that they got trucks and flags, but their mouth is yelling derogatory things, and it
The
makes you
N-word.
feel like
They're saying that.
they're going to hurt you or hurt your property. I guess
If it's a
train us
direct
on how
threat
to
to
deal
you,
with that. I mean,
yeah.
I don't know them from Adam, but if I'm at a stoplight and they're at a stoplight, then you're getting screamed at
Mhm.
because of who you are. So I guess, in these examples, do we need to collectively express to the police department that we don't feel safe? And maybe that could deter if
Well, I
we
have
had
a
more
question.
conversation.
The difference between aggravated menacing and menacing by stalking. So the difference is if you're menacing by stalking, it's to cause mental distress, right? So that's the difference. So if we're talking about someone who's being discriminated against, in the example that we've received in the email or from what she's indicating, wouldn't that fall under that?
The menacing by stalking law is generally something that I'm going to think about when I'm looking at a dating relationship, when I'm looking at somebody that won't leave a woman alone, generally a woman alone because of this perceived attraction or something like that. That's usually what that's going to fall to, and it's usually going to be the same person. I think it has to be the same person. So I don't think I can do menacing by stalking if one day I'm menacing you and then the next day I'm menacing you. And I think it's got to be is it 3 incidents or 2?
No, I can't say. Well, it's at least 2.
Yeah,
So
it's at least
okay,
2
gotcha.
incidents
Okay, I didn't see
for
that.
menacing by stalking. And then aggravated menacing would be serious bodily harm. So
Right.
aggravated menacing in the classic sense is I point a gun at you and tell you I'm going to shoot you.
Okay,
Whereas menacing is I'm going to beat you up.
gotcha.
So
I was just thinking, like, for MLK team, like, how could they be proactive
There's nothing
if
they can do, is what
it
he's saying.
continues to happen, right? Like, I kind of thought, like, if I could get a restraining order, I don't know who they are, you know what I mean? So maybe as a team, because they're in charge of that march, they could put some actions in place.
I guess
So
if I could, so you're saying that the menacing by stalking is in a relationship?
usually, I mean, that's what I think of. I've never really considered it in other situations, but like I said, I think it's got to be the same victim. I don't think it can be separate victims. So if in Sonia's example,
Right.
if I pull up and threaten one person one day and the next day I pull up next to a car and threaten somebody else,
Even though those people, the same
Are the same
person are
people.
black or Hispanic or
I
Chinese or
don't
whatever.
think that would apply.
I think
But
it-
I'd have to
and they just
actually ask the
drive
prosecutor.
Doing the same, yeah.
aimlessly around.
I'd have to ask the
Yeah.
prosecutor, but like I said, I think it's got to be against the same person. I don't think it can be, against a person of the same race. I'd have to read it too, maybe. And
I would just be very, I'd be very eager to understand what we can do from a legal standpoint. So I grew up in a city where, most of the people, my class, it was probably 50-50. So there was white kids that got beat up. There's black kids that got, so so when it, when it comes to race, I think that we should try to figure out how to be protective of certain classes, just so we don't have
Especially
this
in
thing
this
that
day and
continues in our city, because it's a huge thing.
I can tell you that generally as a police department, if somebody is using the N-word in a matter to inflame hatred and towards somebody in a negative way, that we are going to, if we can prove it in a court of law, that we're going to pretty much say that that falls under disorderly conduct, under the
Okay.
fighting words. And I don't have disorderly conduct right in front of me. I used to have it memorized pretty easily, but insulting, challenging, or taunting are some of the words to a fight.
Okay.
And so I think most of our officers, including myself and probably Joel, is if I am confronting you and yelling at you because of your race and I use the N-word, that is almost accepted that could be disorderly conduct. you know?
So in the case of what she's saying, then during these marches or, whatever type of gatherings that we have, like, so we're going to have one on June 19th where we could probably have the same thing happen. So if something happens and we were to make a call, then we could say at least they could have those charges applied.
But every circumstance is different. Every incident
Right,
is
yes,
different.
correct.
I was never, I think maybe once I was a part of the MLK march where I saw the protesters on the other side, and I don't really recall exactly what they were saying and stuff like that. But, because of where we're at in this country, the use of that word in a negative connotation is very well accepted as fighting words.
Yes, a trigger.
Yeah, they were trying to get us to fight them, the words that they were saying, but we were told, and we were protected because the police were around us, but we were told that it was their freedom of speech, and as long as they did not come at us, or that we just had to, take the high road through it. But
And it was hard to explain to kids
it was,
young
I mean,
ones
they,
why
yeah,
they're saying that.
yeah, I think that was
That's
the
what
most traumatic.
bothered me. the
Yeah,
most.
it wasn't
That
true.
these young, we had 8, 7, 6, 5-year-olds
Yeah.
that were scared to death. I
Yeah,
haven't marched since then.
honestly,
I think that's the
it
goal.
does.
So I would encourage you.
every year I just kind of feel apprehensive like they're coming back, but they haven't came back, so hopefully they won't
Yeah.
come back.
That's my hope too.
Yeah.
So. But yeah, in this situation, they never contacted me back. I made contact with the person that reached out to us and offered some options. We would go out and investigate this and see if it rose to a criminal level. And if it rose to a criminal level, we could file charges against the person that they said did this. And like I said, like a doctor's office, there's a good chance there might have been video of the reception area.
That's what I'm
Mhm.
And
thinking.
so, I mean, that would have been pretty clear cut
Right.
had the person that was the target of this wanted to make a complaint.
Right.
And I was willing to probably, at least if the doctor wanted to make the complaint, we would probably move forward with it. But it'd definitely be helpful to have the target of that hatred.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for following up with that.
Anything else?
So the jail downtown, but is that considered county level? Or
Yes.
is, okay,
The sheriff runs the jail downtown and the jail out in
Okay.
25A.
okay. And do you know, I don't know if you have the answer to this, do you know when they can allow tours for the county jail?
I do not. I know that he does give tours. I have taken a tour of the jail with Leadership Troy. So yeah, I mean, there are tours available. You'd have to contact the sheriff or one of his, maybe his chief deputy or one of the administrators.
And again, Sam may can arrange that, just like she did with, Jamie Kenny.
25 might be.
Yeah, the 25A.
Yeah, with Leadership
Yeah,
Troy, we
it's
toured
open.
both too
Uh-huh.
in one day. So.
Yeah, we
That was this
Even
year.
got them treated to a meal, I heard.
Yes, yes,
Oh,
you
yeah,
do. Wasn't that wonderful?
fabulous meal. No.
If-
No, you don't.
She's hungry.
Oh,
Sonia and I went to Leadership Troy together. That's why I don't know.
It wasn't a good, oh, you talking about a meal at the police, at the.
At the
talking
jail.
about a meal that
Yeah.
it was called this, but it tasted like something different.
Yeah.
That's a-
But again, they're in jail, I guess. So That's a
Yeah,
punishment
that's
enough.
right.
I
When-
like food.
I've never
So,
seen a hot dog that color.
I know. It's like, whoa.
And you're
Yeah.
hungry.
Nah, I'm not eating that hot dog.
Yeah, it was.
Okay.
It was
humbling.
bad.
Moving on.
Yeah.
Was that 2021? Was that this year?
Yes, yes. So the statistics I was talking about.
Oh,
Were,
no, the tour. Was that this year?
Oh no, we went through
Leadership Troy. It's
and-
just a part of the leadership Troy. But if you call him, I'm sure he, or again, Salome.
I did, because I know when
I'll take it.
we
I'll find
we
out.
asked last year and they said it was because of COVID, so I didn't know.
Oh.
Okay, yeah, I don't know if they've reopened it because of the COVID.
Yeah.
But, yeah. I
Yeah, we're
remember.
2018, so.
Hey,
COVID
I
didn't
have a
exist.
couple more questions just to keep us on track. And this might be a mayor question, but I know that there's a bill that passed the House and the Senate. It's George Floyd Justice and Police Act. Actually, it was June of last year, HR 7120. And so a lot of things that are happening, or like a lot of things that I brought up initially, that long, that long article that I wrote. So what I'm seeing in here, and I just want to get your feedback on it. So one is that I guess on a national level, there's going to be some police reform where there's several things. So there's going to be a police misconduct report and also a registry so that cops can't transfer from one area to the other. Use of force reporting, and then the one that kind of stuck out is one that could affect the city. So one that is specifically referred to as qualified immunity reform. So have you all talked about that as a city, and how we're gonna, I guess, move forward with that provision? You haven't heard of it yet?
Not anywhere close to that, yeah.
Not anywhere close to it yet.
Come through the state.
And so a lot of the federal reforms you'll see will apply to federal law enforcement agents
And not state.
and not state or local. But what they'll say is if you don't comply with these reforms, then we will withhold federal tax dollars
That's
from
right.
us.
So
I have been a part of several conversations through the Ohio Association of Chief of Police where I've just listened in. I'm not a part of those yet. Where there are several state initiatives too going through that will initiate some change. The one most recently was basically instead of being certified, and I almost look at this as semantics to a certain extent, we will be licensed.
okay.
I
Yeah.
know that this is going through the Ohio legislature, but there will be a board set up that will include civilians that will hear complaints and may decertify or unlicense often, revoke their licenses.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that the state is working on. I also, in that same meeting, they said that they were talking about a permanent funding source for annual training for officers.
Okay.
So right now, the
That's good.
state has not reimbursed us since I think 2018 for annual training. The law is that if they order it, they have to reimburse us for a certain amount of hours
Gotcha.
of those training. And so from what I understand, the proposal is on your car insurance. It's going to go up. There's going to be an additional tax on your car insurance, and that's all
Okay.
going to go towards police training.
Okay, that's good. I guess the one concerning was just the qualified immunity where, if an officer does something and then the city's on the hook, because right now what's happening is, anytime, an officer does something, what you see posted pretty much everywhere is sue the city until they understand that this is not acceptable, right? And so that, like, I see that basically plastered everywhere. And so from just a health standpoint, from a financial health standpoint, that's probably something I hope we're looking into. But I think as you're describing it, it seems that since a cop will eventually have to have a license, they'll have to have insurance as well, which will kind of encapsulate the city away from any of those
Yeah,
lawsuits.
I haven't heard
maybe.
that on the state level.
You haven't?
What that future looks like, I have no idea.
No,
I mean,
yeah, okay.
I did see some recent news that New Mexico recently did away with qualified immunity for all governmental employees. So we'll see how these things shake out,
Yeah.
and what that means and how that will, what that'll end up meaning for the individual officers and the city as far as liability goes. I mean, the city already carries liability insurance.
Yes.
So if things will change with some of these qualified immunity laws going away, I don't know.
And that's where the city law director would keep us informed as to
Herbert.
what law that we need to pay attention to or
Okay.
put into effect. It also would be the city's insurance carrier who will say, hey, this is a new law.
Right.
So it's not just us talking about it, it's coming from insurance, it's coming from the law,
Right.
law director.
Okay.
Currently, I mean, the way we're trained, and like I said, I'm not a lawyer, but during this training we had today, if an officer acts in malice, if they intentionally harm somebody, a lot of times they can already be held liable for personal assets. So, if I do something intentionally to hurt somebody, in a lawsuit, if I lose, my house could be on the line, all my savings could be on the line, everything could be on the line. If I'm acting within the scope of my duties and I get sued, generally it's covered by the city insurance. So qualify, we've been sued and I've been sued, and I'm sure that, if I'm here much longer, which I hope to be, that there may be future lawsuits.
Don't want to be sued, knock on wood. You know.
But it comes back to attracting candidates. If you tell a potential new hire that if you do something wrong, even unintentionally, your house and all your personal savings are on the line, it's going to be even more difficult to attract people to this
I
business.
agree.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't have any more questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your
Yeah,
time.
thank you for the tour today.
I enjoyed it.
That. Yeah. We ran over a little bit, didn't we? It's Sean's fault. All right. So committee reports, Community Relations Advisory Committee. This is Holy Cross.
Can I see? I'm not prepared. Can I see your report?
I can help you out.
Thank you very much. Really, the only update that I think is probably pertinent for right now is tomorrow at 6 p.m. we will have our first planning session in regards to the Juneteenth celebration with our community at large. We have a Zoom link, or you can come to Richard's Chapel. We have approval for our parade. I'll have the route. I gave the one to Miss Phillips, but we have approval of the parade. We have approval to use the park, and I will reach out to the health department tomorrow. The park does not have water or electric, so we're gonna have to have water stations and stuff as we're cooking. So the health department will gladly fill me in on the things that we need to be compliant for. So I'll try to have that ready for the meeting. Pastor Kimma from MLK will facilitate the meeting, as again, we're kind of the background, so we provide a little infrastructure direction. I did take one of my Thrivent grants for $500, and I'm allotting it to the celebration. Melissa Kleps of the Troy Foundation will get with us probably tomorrow to let us know what she can possibly fund as well. And so hearing from our other partners, I basically reached out to every entity that has tried or had expressed their voice through advocacy and caring through the year that we've been on HRC. So everyone has responded back. So I think it's going to be good. The school, unfortunately, there's a track meet tomorrow, and there's a baseball game. And so, they have kids as well. And so I talked to Dave Dilbone, who's the principal at the high school, and he is still going to remain in the loop, although he cannot make that meeting, and David can't make that meeting as well because of events, and he will reach out to student government. Again, it's during summer, and it's our first one, and we're short on time. So I just let him know we have very realistic expectations. But just because you can't come this Friday doesn't mean we don't want them to be there. And so I figured we kind of, again, have that structure and we allow our community to do what it does best, be our community and kind of bring their parts and pieces to it. And
So were you gonna request for the city of Troy to,
I think after
Fund
we
some of
have
this?
our meetings, so we
Okay.
know what to request, probably makes sense. But I'm open. I have all of you CC'd on it, so I hope that you'll all be there and express your opinions as well. So
you know, I know
I just try to
there's-
procure some funding myself and from other entities as well, and then we can, I think, go to the city to see.
Okay.
We're gonna need a banner, so that's why I did the $500. And then, if it's free food, that's money. So I did, just because it's my nature to program coordinate stuff. So I reached out to a couple vendors, and I'm just awaiting to hear if they want to donate food or have a booth and show their support as well. The library, they're really on board. They're going to do like informational at the start of the parade about what Juneteenth is and the history of Juneteenth. They're super excited. I did a quick grant to Altrusa in hopes to get books that you can distribute about diversity and from all ages. So again, if we get that pool of money, I'll let the book people order the books and things like that. So I tried to think about everybody's kind of passion, and I tried to connect something to that. So
So let me just say,
Yeah.
the city cannot really, we can't fund events, we can help with logistics,
okay,
but we can't fund things.
okay.
Um,
Well, you've done a good job at helping with logistics. We got the park. The police are gonna actually be in the front of our parade.
and the back.
And the back, yeah. So I mean, we have that logistics, and that's what I thought. Like as an HRC member, to kind of corral those things, and then allow the team to come together. The MLK has this passion, have this beloved community, and we have all these social groups kind of doing the same things. So if they can come together and maybe carry that on throughout the year, again, I think that's kind of the legacy that we want to leave in our term. So. Thank you for saying that. So I've already been working on other funding.
Awesome.
And do you have an update for Festival of Nations?
They haven't called me back, so I don't know if they're still having it or not.
Okay. And so the last thing, the history preservation, just getting a template together. I apologize. I actually taken on extra duties. I'm working with the Franklin Abuse Shelter to do case management for housing too. So if I look a little stressed, I'm just getting used to my extra responsibilities. But I'm working on a template just to dump our history and, like you said, that we're going to accumulate, and so you can move forward with QR codes and the tour and whatnot. So I'll just make a template and dump them all per our bullet points,
Okay.
and then you can do your techie stuff and with the history people to be. So that's really all the updates that we have. Kane, do you have an update for anything like in regards to the history?
No, I am planning to meet up with the Troy Historic Library on the 13 locations for the Underground Railroad within Troy that we talked about at the meeting.
Okay.
So finding out those locations.
Okay. So if you're working on the locations, I'll work on dumping the bullet points, just the history under those bullet points that we've collected.
Sounds good.
Dream team.
There
Okay.
we go.
That's all we have.
And then we also have under this community relations, we have the
Sorry.
churches.
I'm sorry. Yes, you're right. I apologize. On the 20th of, next week, we have the churches coming, and that will be 6 o'clock.
Well, they've all had a letter sent out, and so as a follow-up, I'm gonna start making phone calls. So
Okay.
I'll give a third of those to you and also to John, and then
I can
maybe
do-
we can triple team it and
Okay.
make sure they all get there.
Perfect.
And then we can send out an email as well. So I think it would be good to have just a voice contact just to make sure.
Yeah, definitely. I would love to do that. And John, you will be amazing at
willing-
that.
I'd be willing to do that.
And then do you guys have your book list?
Yes, we have the
Yeah.
list done.
Okay.
We are just adding stuff to it.
Okay.
So
Do you
We'll
need,
have that the
We'll have it-
20th.
Well, we can have it to them by tomorrow.
Yeah.
do you, Salome, your thoughts on how we get the book list to the school? Do they email it to you and you send it to the school, or do they do it directly, or? Oh, I'm so sorry. David, they're gonna email you the book list and you'll get it to the school?
Great. Sounds good.
Okay.
Yes.
And then I'll share it to Salome for approval, and it
Okay.
can be sent out to be approved. But I also offered to share it with the Miami County and Montgomery County libraries as well.
That's awesome. So yeah, you definitely want it to be on nice letterhead
Yeah,
as
letterhead.
HRC. So I would send it and
Yeah.
let her do. Okay. And then also save a copy of that book list. And if you want to add books to reflect for Juneteenth that we can give away. So,
Well, we have a person.
Yeah,
That would be perfect. That's
Okay.
local. Yeah.
and I believe for right now that's all that we have.
Education and Employment
Unless
Challenges
you want to
Committee.
become the full secretary to both teams since we all meet.
She's like, you can keep that.
Okay, I tried. Thank you.
You can keep it.
Okay, thank you.
I can print it too.
There's an employment meeting next week too, just so you guys remember.
21st, yes.
21st.
Yes.
Oh, that's right. They're both not even employment. It's both committees.
We've combined that was
Yeah.
one note that we needed to provide, that we have combined both committees into one giant, because
Yes.
we're a small team.
We are a small team, but mighty.
That's right.
Almighty.
All right, Mrs. Brown, would
Like
you
the
like
mighty
to
ducks.
report on education and employment challenges?
Do we have any, I must apologize, I do not have anything outside of, the books, and there's
Got that done.
to that.
Yeah, I don't think there was anything else.
Well, we can all go home and see our family.
I want to share on the 22nd, put it on your calendar, the 22nd at 4 p.m. We're having our next community conversation on Earth Day. This is an opportunity for the youth and for the community to be out in the community. So we'll be doing planting flowers and trees and mulching and picking up trash in the community at the Lincoln Center, at several churches in the community, and off of the bike path we'll be picking up trash, and also educating young youth people in the community on diversity as well. So it's a great event. I would love to see everyone there, including our fellow council people and our officers as well.
What date is that?
That is
22nd.
the 22nd, which is Earth Day, and it starts at 4, and we're meeting at the Race McKay Park, and then splitting everyone off into groups to do community service.
That's awesome. You should reach out to Scott Oxier because he has put an email out to the agencies that the youth need community service hours really bad. I will send you his email if you don't have it.
Yes, please. And what
Okay.
was the name on that?
Scott Oxier. He's really cool. Super cool guy.
We have sent to the Troy Christian and the Troy High School. We do have a Facebook page called Community Conversation Earth Day. So if you could check that out, that'd be great. There's several events that are called Community Conversation Earth Day, but you should find Kathy Roeder and my name on it. So
I just learned that next year the high school will impose community service hours that they kind of went off because of COVID. I didn't realize that. So, just food for thought. If you don't get a lot, you'll get more next year because we'll be back to normal.
also let kids know, because scholarships are still requiring community service hours as well. So if you do know kids that are trying to earn community service hours for scholarships, this is a really great opportunity. They should at least get at least 2 hours, maybe even more, depending on how long it goes.
Nice.
So
It's really cool. That's
That's
kind
it.
of awesome, team.
Like to move to adjourn?
I second.
So-
Second.
All in favor?
Ah.
Aye.
bye.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen.
You're welcome.